Alrighty, guys. It's a purpose project video with my good friend Berto. So I
Hello,
guess
everyone.
without further ado, Berto, can you please introduce yourself? Where were you born? Where did you grow up? And how old are you?
Hello, everyone. My name is Roberto Incro, uh, Berto for short. I was born in the very small town of Baltimore, Maryland, where I grew up for a huge portion of my life. I eventually moved to Pittsburgh for my early teenage years, where I met Will and went to high school with him. I moved around a little bit after that for work and other reasons, and now I'm 22 years old.
Nice, man. So, what do you like to do and what do you value in life?
Those are some things that have changed a lot over time because you realize what's more materialistic and just worth your actual time.
Right.
So I would say my priorities have changed more towards career and people. How can I develop myself, per resume? How can I develop myself for a task, for a job? Um, or how can I better the people around me, especially people I care about? So like spending time with my friends or going back to Pittsburgh to visit my niece or just traveling in general to find something new, to do something I didn't have the opportunity to do yesterday, so I can do it tomorrow.
That's awesome, man. So, do you value family? Is that a pretty central part of your life?
You know, Surprisingly, the answer obviously is always yes, but I didn't have the standard, mom and dad, six-figure salary, nice home in like a really close neighborhood where everyone knows everyone. Um, I grew up in a very unorthodox environment. My father passed away when I was very young, and my mother fell sick in recent years. But um, my aunt is probably the most important person to me. My aunt that lives here in Baltimore, and just about do anything for her. So in some ways, yeah. In some ways, no. But it's not always the people you're related to. I'm not related to my niece at all by blood. It's my best friend who had a kid when he was 21 years old, and she's probably the second most important thing to me now.
That's awesome, bro. What do I want to ask? I guess moving on, what high school did you go to and what college did you go to if you went to college?
So I went to high school with yours truly, Will Nacito, at Swickley Academy in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for yeah, for 3 years.
You were only there for 3 years.
I went to Beaver Falls for a short period. I went back,
Oh, okay.
but I graduated from Swickley eventually.
Nice.
And
And
now I go to the University of Maryland, College Park. I am in my last semester here
you,
in
bro.
Prince George's County, right outside of our nation's capital, and studying geospatial data science. And
Wow,
I will have my bachelor's and be a lieutenant by end of May. And I'm applying to grad school right now, actually.
good for you, man.
Thank you.
You see how time flies.
I know, right?
And I'm not sure if like any of the rumors got around to you about like what's been happening with me, but I've took a hiatus from college for like the past 4 to 5 years, and I've been getting treatment for my mental health, which we'll talk about later. But
Of course.
really, to anybody who you know has completed college or is about to complete college like yourself, it's a huge accomplishment. And
I,
just the fact that you're already um thinking about grad school is also amazing, dude. I mean, I know growing up, like you said, your parents had some unfortunate stuff happening to them, but you didn't really let that get in the way of your uh ability to perform and be successful.
it definitely did have a lasting effect. And I'm not going to say it eventually goes away, but as the years go on, as the months go on, as the days go on, it it loosens its grip on you if you can understand. Like,
Right.
so it's not one of those things you say, get over it. Because you'll go, like I remember going to the park um on Dravo Street in Beaver. and seeing all these kids playing with their dads, and I was like, damn, I don't really have one of those. Until my mom remarried to a really nice guy. He's been a delight in every way possible. But
Um,
you know, it's like it's a deficiency that you're never gonna have because you're not gonna be a kid again. You're not gonna have those memories. You can't fabricate that. You can't buy that. Um, this isn't Blade Runner. Like, and you just have to live with it. I know that you miss this and it sucks, but guess what? You're capable of much more than everyone else because of what you lost. And now there are other things you can do, and you'll just have to embrace that this is something you'll never have and not let it get to you. In the shortest, simplest, bluntest way possible. You just can't let it get to you.
yeah, kind of got to practice mindfulness. And one of my good friends from college, Tristan Solicito, who I'm not sure if you saw the video. I actually didn't post it yet, but I'll post that over the next couple weeks. Gonna try to post one every Wednesday. But he said he's been struggling with OCD for the past, foreseeable future, and he looks at that as an opportunity to grow, and he um he thanks he's religious and he thanks God for having OCD because it's made him the person that he is today. So I guess that kind of relates to your situation in a way. Not that you've OCD, but with your father passing and your mother becoming sick, challenges create opportunities.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so I understand you're in the military, correct?
Yep.
How has the military treated you and have you grown as a person because of the military?
There's good and bad in everything in life. And I've had my nuisances, struggles, but I'd say overall, it's been probably the most moving experience in my life and been a good experience overall. Um, I left for basic training maybe 2 or 3 days after I graduated from Swickley. I didn't have time to enjoy my summer or anything like that. And I wasn't upset about it at all. I was ready to get to work, and I wanted to miss the least amount of time of college as possible. So I left for Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Those 10 weeks were probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life because it was a complete change. You had people there, aka drill sergeants, that were just on you 24/7. If you slept wrong, made your bed wrong, walked wrong, talked out of line, didn't stand the correct way, looked in a different direction when you're supposed to be eyes front at a certain time, everyone suffered for it. And it made you realize it reminded some people that like maybe didn't play sports growing up that you have to work together with people. Teamwork is essential because you come with I'd say most people there were 17 or 18 like myself and hadn't, some of them had a similar experience to mine, not great like parental guidance, but like maybe they had, um, I don't know, some other strengths that helped there, but they didn't really work as a team very well until the end because it's something that's forced upon you. You're put in a situation where you're forced to evolve. And it makes you realize, like, when you get out of that setting, the army isn't like that as much because you're a real soldier at that point once you're done. And you have to hold yourself to that standard. And that what defines the true measure of a person, that level of discipline. Like, what is your intent and how are you going to execute that? That's what defines a person.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. I mean, I can't even imagine what going through basic training would be like compared to. I think it's just one of those things you kind of got to go through to actually understand. And to those viewers out there that have been through basic training, I'm sure they can empathize with the struggles you went through and also the good moments of feeling like camaraderie around, like with your fellow comrades. So you think you grew as a person, and specifically with your discipline because of the military?
Absolutely. It made me a little more goal oriented, which I don't think I had an issue with, but it made me act a lot quicker. I wouldn't put things off as much. Even now to this day, I don't have a habit of doing that unless I'm really, really sleep deprived. Um, It's kind of changed my perspective on a few things in a bad way, I would say. Um, because I look at everything now as something that needs to be done. And that's good in a lot of ways because you stay productive, you stay on task, you beat the competition, you're the best. That is the perspective you get out of that. But because of that, it kind of hinders you from enjoying some of the smaller things and stopping for a second and slowing down. Like I have it as a goal, like a task to go up and see my niece, make sure she has everything she needs, make sure my friend Carson and his now wife Sanaya has everything she needs for my niece. Rather than, hey, like this is your time off, enjoy it. You care about this child, you care about one of your best friends in the world, like go see him. I don't look at it that way anymore. And that's kind of a bad thing that's come out of it. It removes a bit of a human factor, which has made me a more reliable person, but it takes a little bit of enjoyment out of it.
I mean, all I can say is that's a very loyal person, Berto. I still remember coaching you at Journey of the Hoop. Remember that?
Yeah, that was what, 2017, June 2017.
Yeah, I still remember coaching you.
Yeah.
You seem like you're doing all the right things, where you're caring about people around you. You're developing yourself professionally and personally. I mean, that insight that you said about the military, I mean, that's some pretty good insight about how it's taught you to be more goal and task oriented, but also kind of hinders your ability to not be so robotic, for lack of better words.
No, that's an accurate and fair way of saying it. That's a totally fair way of saying it.
I mean, I remember I was out west in treatment, and one of the therapists was talking about the military and all the benefits that it offers. So I think that's definitely a cool thing that you're pursuing that, as well as your other academic endeavors. So moving on, what has playing organized sports taught you about life? How
Oh,
important do you think playing sports is to one's development?
um, you know, when it comes to social development, I don't think I'm an expert, but I will say this. I think it plays an integral role in the development of any like adolescent individual because it forces you to work with people that you maybe like or don't even know. It's basically like, you know, throwing someone into the frying pan, just go in there. If you mess up, you mess up, but you're learning to communicate. You're learning that if this person fails, you all fail. A chain is only as strong as the weakest link. So if you grow up without that, like truly comprehending that aspect of life, then you're missing something. You're missing a key part of how society works, how jobs work, how, I don't know, playing sports in the future might work, how the military for me has worked, like how being in a relationship with a significant other. I know that sounds a bit far-fetched, but it's not. You're going to have to make big decisions if you're a constant part of someone else's life.
And you alluded to it before about, like developing and maintaining relationships. I think when I was playing, I think you play lacrosse, right?
Yes, sir.
And you're a goalie.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I remember. I played tennis, which was in the same season as lacrosse, and you know Whitney Snyder, right?
Uh, Say again, the
Do you
name?
know Whitney Snyder, the tennis coach?
No, I can't say I do.
Um, well, he was a tennis coach, and basically one of his big things was it's all about relationships. And you alluded to that before when talking about your niece and your mother and father and the military. Probably teaches you all about relationships within the industry, for lack of better words. But I know for myself, sports has taught me how to compete, how to communicate, like you're saying. Taught me a whole bunch of stuff.
I would like to apologize for the background noise if it sounds like literal turbulence on an airline. That's because it is absolutely horrific weather outside in College Park, Maryland. So
Oh, you're good.
just in case that causes any problems on your
No,
end.
I don't hear you. Um, anyway, have you grown more mature, do you think, by playing sports or being in the military?
Um,
You can compare the two.
so I would say the military definitely had a bigger impact on my life because it controlled me every second of the day. And that's how it's going to be whenever you work, whether you're reserves, National Guard, or full-time active duty. It controls you. Especially if you're active duty. You have to request leave. That's horrible. That's why I didn't go. I I want to serve, but I couldn't imagine outside of a deployment to combat, which is exactly what I want before I get out, whenever that is. Um, I couldn't imagine living somewhere like on a duty station, like not overseas, not again, not on a deployment. Like they're like you're going to Fort Liberty, North Carolina. I'm like, I don't want to go to Fort Liberty. Well, you're gonna be there for 4 years. You're just gonna have to live there. You're not gonna fight. You're not gonna do combat, but you're just living there. I'm like, that's no. So maturing is also part of realizing like what exactly what can you handle. Don't accept too much responsibility, which is a problem I still have, which we can get into later if you'd like. But um, I think that was more important than sports because it controlled every aspect of my life. And I've been in for it'll be 5 years on September 8th. So like that's a big deal. And it's made me want to pursue higher goals. I wanted to play football as well, and I honestly thought I could have played football at the college level, besides, getting hurt like every high school wannabe story is. But
Hmm.
also, I just didn't have enough stats. Not that they were bad, I just didn't have enough. And the team I was playing for at the time, because Swickley didn't have one, I played for Vincentian Academy. So the team I played for closed down. The whole school closed down. So it's whatever has the most long-lasting effect in your life, whatever creates the biggest change for you. And for me, that was the military.
Yeah, I mean that's the military. I mean, I've heard. So have you been deployed?
Not yet. No, I've stayed National Guard. I've been motioned and activated and switched around, but I haven't been deployed. National Guard is mainly used for domestic threats and then as a secondary force for active duty on deployments for combat.
And you said you want to complete 8 tours.
A tour. I would like to tour either, we're still in combats with Somalia, maybe one other two countries in the continent of Africa. We're still in Iraq. That is still a deployment. My friends actually just got back in, I want to say November, in Iraq. They were with 25th ID, I want to say. But yeah, that for me is a pivotal need in life. I need to go on a 9-month deployment to combat, whether it's the Middle East or Africa, or whether we go to Yemen, which I guess we're projected to sometime in the near future, or
It's,
even whatever crazy changes happen in the world.
it's going to be a great opportunity for personal and professional growth, dude. I mean, just seeing like places like Iraq and Yemen and Somalia. I mean, those are like third world countries.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine doing that. So I give you a lot of credit for sticking with it and sticking to your morals and your values. And I mean, everything I'm hearing from you is positive stuff, Berto. I really, I'm proud of that. I was at one point in time a mentor in your life.
Absolutely.
Hopefully had a good,
Bro.
what am I looking for? Impersonation on you.
Impact.
Impact, yeah. Impact is the word I'm looking for.
I did not have a good experience with high school overall. So you are one of the solemn reminders of that place that there's good in everyone.
Yeah, there's good everywhere. You just gotta find your people. But anyway, so being a man, what are some challenges that you face that might surprise some people?
So growing up, because of the way I grew up, I should say, for lack of better words. Um, and again, I've been going through this um, transition. Again, not the best word, but I've been a very confrontational person my whole life. I would hate the two things I could never stand is the idea of selfishness and being a coward. Feeling afraid of something, I would say for the average person, that's fine. I can't stand that idea. I hate the concept of fear. Um, but being afraid of something is normal. Acting on that fear to evade responsibility is cowardice. That's the distinction. Um, that and selfishness. So I've always, you know, prided myself on I will never become those two bad qualities. I could be arrogant, I could be overconfident, I could even my vulgar language. That's a very common thing in my life. I won't lie, and I won't beat myself up for those things because it's part of my confrontational personality. Because I'm not going to say the nicest things, but at the end of the day, I'm going to do the right thing. That is what I stand for. That is what I firmly believe and always have believed about myself. However, I have come to this great epiphany and sought guidance that it's extremely unhealthy. I am an unhealthy person because solely of my character. Not that I have malicious intent or anything like that, but just my state of being is, in lack of better words, killing myself. It's my confrontational personality. I'm always on edge. I'm always paranoid. Because of where and how I grew up, I always look over my shoulder when I'm going somewhere and just seeing what's around. I'm always observing. And I think the military, I'm not going to say made that worse, but it made it like it really nailed it in. It welded it in is the best way I could describe it. But I've been trying to be a more dismissive and less confrontational person, and that's been the biggest challenge of my life because someone wanted to fight me a few weeks ago, and I've been in a lot of street fights growing up. I've done several martial arts, and I'm in the military. I've been thoroughly trained over my life. Very young, but I'm very poised and confident and have a high pain tolerance. It would not have gone well for this individual. But instead, my friend was there and he sees me in a positive limelight, similar to how I see you. If I engage in that confrontation like that, how would he see me after? Would he see me the same way? And that really, like, I saw him looking at me through a window and I was like, no, I'm gonna back away. And I've thought about the decision. He praised me for it. He was very proud of me, and that made me feel better than anything. But it was a struggle after because it went against my baseline of instincts. I need to seek that out. I need to finish this because that's who I am. Changing my nature has been the most impossible thing. I've been watching this YouTuber on Instagram. His name is Fat Brett. That's his actual name. He talks about Kratos and his struggle to change his nature. He's one of the most violent characters in cinema ever made. Um, but he's like actively doing it and he's handling it fairly well. I'm not. I'm a really confrontational person, and I feel I don't feel like myself. I don't feel like myself at all. And I've sought help, I've sought guidance. I've talked to a pastor in New Brighton, Pennsylvania, who gave me this. It's a book called Becoming a Better Man of Unwavering Faith. I know you can't see it, but since it's recorded, I figured I'd share it with everyone else. It's by Joel Osteen. I'm a few chapters in, and it's giving me guidance I don't fully understand yet, but I'm going to look into. So, to answer your question, the problems I'm having as a man is not with fear, anxiety, money, women, um, expectations. Sometimes I bite off more than I can chew, but I think that's just a side of my ambition. I don't have a problem with ambition. It's changing this fundamental aspect of my character because I don't think my intent was ever bad, but it's how I
Right.
handle it, how I react, how I respond, and it needs to change. And it's it feels like one of the harder things I've done in my life so far because I don't know how to change who I am, who I've always been.
I have full faith in you, bro. I mean, I think I don't want to say like for sure this is the case, but it sounds like you're pretty hard on yourself, which as humans, we all are more likely to be negative than positive. I heard somewhere that it takes like five negative things to equal, or sorry, it takes five positive things to equal one negative, or vice versa, whatever makes sense. Um, I definitely can relate to, you know, beating myself up over things that maybe I shouldn't beat myself up for, but it sounds like you're one of the key understandings of the college I went to, which was Hamilton College, was know thyself, which I think is a really important thing that I've learned over the past 4 to 5 years. I've done a lot of self reflection, self discovery. made a lot of progress. And I think that through seeking mentors and absorbing information from the internet and books, you can definitely do the same. But anyway, moving on to a lighter topic. I understand that you're a big Ravens fan. How did that treat you going to high school in Pittsburgh? Was it fun being the one dude who rooted for the rival team?
So, I know you're trying to move on from the last segment, but that really bleeds into it really well, because I think that's another aspect or factor or force even that brought out the confrontational nature in my life, because I was constantly in a place that disrespected my opinion of a culture. The culture of Baltimore, Maryland is completely different from the culture of Pittsburgh. It's crab cakes versus Yinzer. And that's how I grew up. Team crab cakes all the way. But as a Charm City kid, it was very, very different. I didn't have the Baltimore accent or anything because I know how to pronounce my R's. It comes out when I'm angry. I can't help it. But looking back on it, going to Heinz Field or going to school in Beaver Falls or Swickley, someone always having something to say, especially Heinz Field when people are drunk and I'm a big kid for my age and these adults are very short and fat. And again, the confrontational nature's coming out. But in that case, for those of you who are kind of what I described, you should kind of watch what you say around the people wearing purple that are bigger than you. Because they're about it. They're from a different walk of life and they will mess you up. Um, and I did that sometimes. I did that. And I've stopped that in recent years because it's just a game. It doesn't matter. And that was part of being a kid. I didn't know that. But like if you're an adult and you don't know that, like, come on. Um, it brought out that confrontational nature of me. It was fun because it felt like it gave me something different that everyone else didn't have because I picked something unique compared to the entire population in the area. So it felt something that I could have to myself, which was actually a positive thing about me being in Pittsburgh as a Ravens fan. It was like it's something my own, rooting. It was all year long because I rooted for the Caps too. But uh, it was just something different, something good, something I cared about. Because I looked up to those players a lot. Like my favorite athlete of all time will always be Joe Flacco, because how he carries himself, how he's raised, the how the media tore him apart, how people in Pittsburgh talked about him, because he went to college at Pitt actually, um, and how he was kind of heckled out of there, and he's got some records that are up there with Brady, Manning, Marino that will probably never been broken. Jaden Daniels just tied one of his this year, which is crazy. But yeah, no, it was just something to look at and look up to, being a Ravens fan, being a believer in something that no one else believed in, and seeing positive results in those leaders like Flacco, Reed, Lewis, and at the time Justin Tucker.
Cool, man. So I mean, we're looking down at the last two questions. So we you kind of alluded to it earlier in the podcast, but what are some mental health challenges that you faced, if any, and how did you overcome said challenges if you have?
For DoD reasons, I can't get into that too much,
That's
other
okay.
than my character development, which I previously spoke about and I won't get into. The biggest thing, I think, the biggest real challenge, I think, at least our generation, no, anyone, man or woman, has a problem with getting over with is grief. Getting through that mental aspect of grief because it lives rent free in your head. It's like looking at a puzzle piece with one, like, perfect, like, 4-bit piece in the middle that, like, just not only does it complete the puzzle, but you figured out all the hard ones.
Yeah.
And you know that you dropped that piece somewhere and you can't get it back. It's People would say like grief is just the absence of love. Like, no, it's more than that. It's a void. Growing up, losing my uncle Tony right before leaving for basic training, uh, was huge or excuse me, right after I enlisted, because he was the only one that supported that decision. My stepdad said he was on board with it, but pretty much everyone else did not like the decision. Even my best friend Mike was a little hesitant, and my other best friend from Baltimore, Nick, he was also very hesitant. He had some words about it. None of them, none of my close friends shunned me for my opinion, but my few remaining family members, except for my Uncle Tony, all had very vocal opinions about it that started long-lasting arguments for years. Doubt, and that really got to me. But losing my Uncle T, the only one that supported me, was something very difficult to overcome, especially because I had a phone call with him when I went to Cocoa Beach just for a few days uh, to tell him, like, hey, when you get out of the hospital, we're gonna have a few beers when I come back. And he was like, absolutely, I'm proud of you. And then it just never happened, and it never will happen. So getting over grief, I think, was the hardest thing I've had to overcome. And I think the biggest way you can fill that in a healthy manner, because that's the most important thing, is with success. It was with ambition. Because that grief, if you let it sit there, it will just eat you up. And it's not one of those things. A lot of people will tell you this, and I personally think they're wrong. So please understand that this is my opinion based off of my experiences. You don't just read some scripture from the Bible, and I'm a religious person, and I know this. You don't read just some scripture and sit there and pray. And this book has told me that. You have to use that grief. You have to think about it. You don't just forget it and move on. That's not how that works. That's not what happens. Don't let it fully become all of your anger, excuse me, and confuse you, but channel it to ambition. This person's gone, and look at all the success you've achieved in their absence. Imagine what you could have done when they were here to help you, but you didn't need it, and they'd be proud of you for it. Channel that grief into ambition. It may not always be the healthiest thing, but that's what's worked for me, and I've accomplished a lot in a few short years since his passing.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. I'm sorry for your loss, but I'm happy that you've managed to overcome that obstacle that we all unfortunately have to face in life is grief at one point or another. Um, so I guess lastly, and you kind of just alluded to this question, but I'm gonna ask anyway. What would you recommend to someone like yourself who may be watching this podcast?
Well, for one, I would hope there's no one like me that exists. But there are people in the world that have gone through way worse stuff than I have or ever will go through, and my hearts go out to them. I want to make that abundantly clear. Uh, but let's say there's someone in a similar predicament to my own. Do what Will said. First, you have to find your people because you're going to have shortcomings, you're going to have mistakes, you're going to have flaws that you can't either correct ever, like I'm trying to do with my character right now and my confrontational ability, or that just you can't solve in the moment by yourself right now. You just can't. You need other people, and you have to make the effort and the willingness to go out there and try to make that change in your life because no one's going to do it for you. No one's going to advocate for you except yourself unless you do it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's all the questions that I have, Berto. I have very high hopes for you in the future, and I'm really proud to call you a friend, and hopefully we can stay in contact over the years. With that being said, this Purpose Project video is about to conclude. Once again, after each podcast, I like to say a few words about being kind. You never know what someone's going through. Sometimes the best thing to do is take the path of kindness. Without further ado, Berto, thank you once again for joining the podcast, and we'll see you guys soon.
Thank you for your time. Have a wonderful evening. Enjoy the rest of your walk.
Thank you, sir.